Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Welcome to another episode of Advance Your Art with Yuri Cataldo. If you're interested in learning how to build a company, make money from your art, or transition to a new career, you've come to the right place. If you like this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Today, I'm chatting with Maranda Joiner, who's a brand strategist and owner of Miranda J Marketing. Miranda, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, it's the elephant in the room right now. So how are you? How are things? And how has your business been running because of COVID?
Sure. Well, of course, to answer the first question, I am really, for considering the circumstances, really good. At times, feeling really good about things that are happening in my personal life, so much so that it's hard to want to get excited about them because of all the things that are happening around us in the world. Mm-hmm. Of course, my business, like everyone else's, was affected directly when it initially started in March because it was new and people didn't know what to do. And so there was so much unfamiliarity there. And me running a consulting business where I was meeting with people one-on-one, everything for me had to shift online, but I was already kind of half online and half, seeing people face to face as a brand strategist. And so to do everything online, really, at first it took a little bit of adjustment, but once I started, I honestly almost think I like it better. So majority of my, my clients that are here locally, they resorted online, and of course the ones that are out of state, they were familiar with the process. But yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay. Well, good. That's good to hear. Because this random occurrence definitely throws off everybody else. So for my listeners who are not familiar with you and what you do, how do you describe yourself and your work?
Absolutely. I am a brand strategist. I'll give you the walk-up intro. Hi, my name is Maranda Joiner. I'm a brand strategist. And what I do is I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, and creatives, helping them to really discover and identify their unique brand voice, and then make that connection to their audience so that they can, as a result, make more money. Because ultimately, that's what more people want to do. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's start from the beginning a little bit. So originally you studied communications. What made you want to go to school for that, and what was your original goal to be with your degree?
Sure. So I think as most college students entering into school, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and turns out it totally wasn't that. So I think originally I wanted to be an occupational therapist because as a younger Miranda and a young adult, I wasn't really sure exactly the field I wanted to go in. I would always admire people who knew from childbirth the thing that they were put on this earth to do. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I just wasn't that. I didn't come out of my mother's womb playing the trumpet or playing the piano or dancing or playing basketball or any of that. Like, I want to be a doctor. And I knew it when I was 3 years old. I had no clue. But what I did know was that I was passionate about people. I love people, that I was good at connecting other people. And, I was a writer, and I really could process and understand things and people around me in a way that as I got older, I realized that wasn't as common as I assumed it was amongst the way people thought and their train of thought. So I originally went for occupational therapy, but then as I progressed, my love for writing, because I was always a poet. My mother was a writer. She was a teacher for 33 years here. And so she was a poet and a writer and wrote books. And so my love for poetry started really young. I took writing and decided that I wanted to go into journalism to see the world in a different way. And so as I progressed through college, I decided to major in mass communications.
Okay.
And in mass communications, towards the end of my college years, I landed an internship at a radio station, which kind of shifted because my focus in college was PR, but then it shifted to radio. And then really from that point, that kind of thrusted me into the entertainment media world. And it was all uphill from there. Uphill, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your time in radio. What was that like, and how did you transition from, an intern to being an on-air radio personality, and what was it like being an on-air radio personality?
Yeah, sure. So I jumped into radio as an internship. It was actually, here's the beautiful thing about life and the process and trusting the process. I went to a Christian college, a private Christian college, and what ended up happening at this not so cheap Christian college was that the time I was scheduled to graduate, I found out in my last semester, because my counselor was amazing, that there was a class that I was supposed to take that I didn't have that was required for graduation. So I ended up having to spend an entire extra semester spending a lot more money than I wanted to, just to say, oh, I graduated to get a degree for one class that somehow got skipped over. But that was the semester that I landed the internship at the radio station. That was the semester that I got the job at the radio station, and that really catapulted me into the life and set me off into this course that I'm on. And had I not been there the extra semester, I would have never been at the radio station. So there's a fun thing there. But once I started as an intern, what happened was I was interning, and the morning show personality guy there, he saw a new voice in the building because they cut commercials in the radio station. And so he had me to come on, and he said, he wanted me to record a commercial for him because they were always looking for new voices. And he took me into the production room and said, okay, I want you to do this commercial. There are some strippers that are coming here from Detroit, from Atlanta. And he was like, so basically, I want you to just lean into the mic and pretend it's your boyfriend's ear and just read this copy off the computer. And I'm going to close you in here, and I'll be back, and I'll just edit whatever you record. And I was like, oh, okay. So the very first time my mother heard my voice on the radio, I was on a commercial pretending to be a stripper visiting Jackson, Mississippi, from local states surrounding us.
Nice.
And eventually what ended up happening was that a part-timer on the weekend ended up quitting during my internship there. And the program director, I guess he just was impressed with my personality, and he offered me the job. When Mailman, who was the on-air personality who put me on the stripper commercial, after I did the commercial, he would invite me in to sit with him in the morning, just as like a sit-in to have somebody to bounce things off of. And he would call me the intern. And so I didn't have a name when I first went on. I was just known as the intern because I was simply going in there for free just to play with him. And I think our camaraderie was what won the program director over. And then I got offered the job when the guy left. So pretty cool story there. And I did radio from 2003 off and on to 2017. And in the stint of that was kind of how I rolled over into doing more things and eventually landed into being a brand strategist.
Okay. So let's talk about then the transition then from radio personality to brand strategist. Sure. When was it that you decided that it was time to move on to something else? And what was that process like of deciding this is what I want to do and this is the company that I want to create?
Absolutely. Well, for the last go round of me working at the radio station, because I moved away for a little bit and come back, I came back and I started working on the morning show. When I originally, even though as an intern, I sat in with the morning show guys, I never officially had a spot on the morning show. It was just kind of a fun thing to do. And it kind of had a small, it lived for a small time. And then I went on to just fill in during the part-time, when the main people were off, we would fill in and on the weekend. And, but the last go round towards the mid 2000s, I came back and I landed a spot on the morning show with him, same guy, landed a spot on the morning show as a co-host. So I actually had an actual seat and position, and I could use my actual real name this time as a personality on the morning show. And in that time frame, I started running an open mic here locally.
Okay.
And we would average and get up to 80 to 100 people, artists, creatives, poets, singers, live painting, live music, live DJ. And it grew so rapidly, and we've been running it for the last 7 years, that in the midst of that, I was able to meet so many people, from creatives to artists to entrepreneurs to business owners. And I ended up meeting a young lady who was starting her career as a comedian. And I ended up helping her to develop and grow her career from essentially not having any presence at all to now she is on Comedy Central, has toured with Ricky Smiley, has been on the Kevin Hart Show, has left Mississippi and now moved to New York, but also TruTV. And we really just created her career from the ground up, and we did it within a small frame of 4 years. So within a 4 to 5 year window, we took her from being, hey, nobody knows who this is, to having an entire city supporting her and rooting for her, to her moving into a space to where she's on Comedy Central with Kevin Hart, touring with Ricky Smiley. He even wrote about her in his book. And so for me to help her to develop that career really put me in a position to realize, oh my gosh, two things. One, I'm really good at this. And then I also realized while working with her that, two, I didn't want to just do this for one person, because honestly, it wasn't an intentional thing in helping her. I just started out helping her as a favor. And as things took off, we just kind of dug our feet in and just, we were all in. And I realized that I wanted to do it for more people. And so I took a chance. And in 2019, I completely stopped working with her to venture and do this for other people as her career excelled. And in 2018, in November, I quit my job that I was working and decided to do it full time. And so that's kind of the timeline. In 2018, I quit. And then after a few months of me trying to build it, I just decided to cut all strings and do it full fledged.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So what did that feel like at that time to suddenly just, leave things and switch over to this new career full time? And when you were doing that, were there, books you were reading or people you were talking with about how to build your company, or you just jump in and go with it?
That's a very, very good question. So I went from where I was sitting at the moment, at the time, I was initially at the radio station, and then I ended up leaving there because I just felt like I wanted to stretch a little. And I went to go work for a PR company as a public relations specialist for a nonprofit. And I realized very quickly, because it was one of those environments that was not the most favorable, that this wasn't for me. And I ended up working for an old boss of mine that I absolutely adored. He needed help at a car dealership in the service department. And so I decided to sit part-time in the service department until I figured out what my next move would be. And so that was the positioning that I was in. I was in a position where I was like, I have stability, and I was really, really attached to stable and consistent money coming in my life. It is how I breathe. It is very important to me. And so that was my fear in letting go of a job that was run by somebody else, was the consistency and stability of financial stability. Well, jumping into it, to answer your question, it was terrifying. But I made the decision one day to just, some things happened at work, and I said, you know what, this is going to be my last week, and I'm going to quit and just do it. Because what was happening was the career and the things that were happening on the side were happening at such a pace that I was building it at the same time where I was working another business. And so because of that, I just made the decision to shift over and take a chance on myself. And it was absolutely scary. It was terrifying. But the one thing that I do know about fear is that the antidote to fear is action. And so I really just shifted my mindset to say, if it's happened before, I could do it again. And the worst thing that could happen is I'll just find another job if it doesn't work, right? So the worst thing that can happen, because of the positioning I'm in right now, it just seemed like the perfect opportunity to do it, because it wasn't like the job I was at was going to be a long-term job.
Right.
And so I just took the leap. And at the time, I absolutely was reading books and listening to a lot of podcasts. I was an avid podcast listener. And I tell people about this story, and I actually was talking to a client today about this very podcast that I was listening to at the car dealership place in that little boxed up room. I was listening to Gwyneth Paltrow's